Aranea is the last of the Final Fantasy XV collaboration to be released, and she is also a powerhouse. She's a little bit different from the other units in that all she has is damage. It's really what she revolves around. She is fairly bulky, but she's mainly about just butchering as many people as she can. There are very few units in War Divisions that I consider have the potential to one-shot because of barriers, because of all the ways units have to protect themselves. She is one of those. Short of a barrier, she is going to deal crazy damage to most teams. Before I move forward with the review, I want to say none of the Final Fantasy XV units are must-have. They're all very good and they will be powerful in a lot of contexts, but none of them are units that you will regret missing. There is no content you will not be able to do if you don't pull them, and you will still be able to compete in PvP without them. So pull for these units if you want them, if you like their kit, not if you're afraid of missing out on something. And so, she's got high mod attacks. A lot of attacks in her kit are 200% mod already. She has 40% defense penetration. It's not crazy, but it's enough. She does have a guaranteed hit, but it's one of her weaker attacks, so you don't want to bank on that too much. She's got the ability to dispel people, inflict frostbite, remove courage, which is a very big thing. We have a lot more units with courage than before, and units like Elena are a big pain because of that, so being able to remove it is huge. The only thing she can do to support others is enable their Pierce attack up. Outside of that, she's a very, very selfish unit. What she does is damage, and that's it. Don't expect anything else. In terms of drawbacks, well, she is selfish, as I just said. She's got a very short range. Almost all her moves are range 4. Her LB has a little bit more range, but to the sides, not forward. So it's still hard to land. And then she is somewhat fragile to magic. She will have really good HP, but not a great amount of mitigation for magical damage. Her master ability is for ice, so HP and attack for ice units, and then some agility for her and crit damage. Her kit does not revolve around crit at all though, so that's just a little bonus on top. Now, let's look at the stats, because that's pretty important. If you look at her, she's got 3800 HP. That is way below somebody like Oberon, but it's still not that bad. And with the VCs that we have for Ice, it's pretty easy to fit the Freezes VC and gain 25% extra HP for everybody. So she can end up with a very decent amount of bulk. Then 564 attack is definitely in the high tier. There's very few units that have that kind of attack, so that's really good. 66 agility is also really decent. It's a little bit faster than most units, so I like that a lot. 4 defense, sure, that's cute. It's not a lot, but it's there. And then her luck at 231 is on the low end, so in terms of accuracy or evasion, she is definitely not there. And then her resistances are overall pretty good. She's got 20% resistance to wind, which is a strong element. She's got some positive slash, pierce, and missile. A base 20% missile resistance, which is really, really fun. And only 10% magic weakness. A lot of units have very high magic weaknesses, so that is not bad at all. And then status effect resistances. She's got some charm resistance, frostbite resist, which is okay, and a little bit of disable resist. Overall, these are really good statuses to be resistant to, so I have no complaints there. Now, in terms of support abilities, I think the one choice that you must always get is the one that increases her defense, penetration, and defense. The main reason is without defense penetration, you can't really deal with tanks. That is an ability that you need to have no matter what. Then you've got a couple good choices. I would likely pick the Fighting Spirit, which increases HP and attack, because I feel like a little bit more bulk is really fun and if you're a unit like this, and it might push her from taking 2 physical hits before dying to 3, so I like that. Otherwise, I would probably go for Luck Up and Pierce Attack Up. It will increase your damage quite a bit, and Luck is also good for accuracy, so it's never a wasted stat. In terms of counter abilities, she's got one that I think is the best, and it's her new one, the Fast Sting, because it counters physical damage before the damage triggers, and it has a 30% chance to proc. So if anybody attacks you from within 2 square, you've got a pretty high chance to poke them before the attack resolves, which is a pretty fun thing. Otherwise, the Dragoon counter procs after the attack, but will likely heal you, so it's a tough call between these two. I'd say they're both really good. The burst counter from the Pugilist, though, I would never use, mainly because it's range 1, and enemies very rarely attack you from the square right in front of you, and so I feel like that's going to be less relevant. Now let's look at Aranea's main kit. And the first attack is very interesting because in a kit filled with Pierce attack, she has a strike attack that's also a guaranteed hit with a 165 mod that only costs 15 AP. That's pretty fun. Usually when units have like one specific ability that's against their attack type, they have one or two casts of it, and so it's really hard to use it reliably. But in her case, even in a map that's resistant to strike attack, you could potentially factor her in because she can use that 6 times, which is pretty good. Now, it's not her strength, but I like the fact that her guaranteed hit attack is not one of those weak 121 mods. It can actually deal serious damage. Then she's got the Frost Arts buff. That's going to increase her Dragon Leap by adding a chance of Frostbite for 3 turns, which is fun. And then it also increases her defense by 15 and attack. I like the fact that she gets a defense buff, mainly because she's one of those units that is already pretty bulky, and so if you can push that further, you're just increasing your chance to take that 3rd hit before going down. Then she's got the Burst Piercer, which dispels buffs and haste and then deals damage, 200 mod, very, very high damage instantly. And then if you EX her, it also removes his Courage before dealing damage, so that is pretty damn good. Then she's got a Delayed Jump, which in an AoE decreases agility. That's a good ability, but it's not game-changing in my opinion. I would probably use the Dragon Leap more often unless you can get the AoE, because that's going to decrease single target resistance by 30 before dealing damage, and then maybe have a chance to Frostbite if you've used the Frost Arts first. So that is a crazy high damage ability. Decreasing single target resistance before dealing damage will result in pretty crazy overall damage. And then finally, she's got an ability that increases Pierce attack in an AoE. It's her only ability that affects teammates, so you can tell she's really just designed to kill people. It also increases her own defense penetration by 30 for 3 turns, which is a pretty good thing. With that, she reaches defense penetration of 70 with the right passive, which basically means she doesn't care about the enemy's defense. Then her Limit Break is also really good. It has an increased defense penetration of 40. That's not going to stack with your buff though, so it's 80 total if you're using this for this attack. And then it's an AoE 200% mod that decreases Pierce resistance, but after the hit. So it enables her for future turns, which makes this a good opener. It's really what it's designed for. It does have a pretty high AP cost though, so unless you're running bells on her, you're unlikely to see plays with that. Something I want to point out about this ability is it has a height range of 3. So you can drop that on somebody who's way higher or way lower than you, and you're still going to hit them. So that's a really big pro for this attack. Then I don't really think you're going to use the Brigadier General sub-job too often, but if you do, you get a 2-hit attack, so I guess that's something, and then an attack with a chance of disabling. Now, I don't think you want to raise Aranea's faith at all. I think she's already not that bulky versus magical attacks, and you don't want to get her into one-shot range, so it's quite unlikely that you get the status effect off. I would probably focus on the other jobs. Now, let's look at those sub-jobs. The first one is Dragoon sub-job. We've seen this very often. The only ability I would use in that is the extra move and jump. This is really good. It's something that I think she doesn't necessarily need, but it could be the difference between getting the first hit on the enemy team and not having it, because she has short range, and so with a normal movement of 3, she can hit basically 7 squares away. If you do that, she can now hit 8 squares away, and sometimes 1 square is the difference between getting the initiative or not. So I like this one for this reason. In manual, I would likely run it often. Then the Pugilist sub-job it's good, but it's not that great. So you gain access to Steel Buddy Stance, which is redundant with the fact that you can already increase defense with your main job, and most of these attacks don't have so much of a higher mod compared to her base attack, so she already has a 165 mod strike attack. You could use Wicked Pummel for a 195 mod attack against humans, or Demon Purger if you've taken a few hits already. But outside of that, the main benefit of this sub-job is giving her a heal for 30% of her max HP. It's not great, but it's the only heal in her kit, and so in some situations I would see myself using that. Now, I did put together a sample build for Aranea, and initially I did not think she would be that strong, and now that I'm looking at the stats she can have, I'm very tempted to pull for her instead of Noctis, because she just has so much to offer in terms of raw stats. 8200 HP is crazy, especially with 37 defense and good resistances. She's got 25 resistance to slash, 10 to piercing, 40 to missile, 10 to magic. She is quite likely to take 2 to 3 hits from physical, probably more 3 than 2, and at least 2 from magical attacks, because who's gonna hit her for more than 8000? So it's very impressive. And then 1300 attack, 40 to 70 defense penetration if she uses her offensive buff, and on top of that, 105 ice mod and 60 pierce attack. This is one-shot territory. It is crazy powerful damage, and so I like this a lot. Now for this, I did use the Esper that is going to be released alongside her, and all 3 vision cards that you see on screen. So there is a couple buffs that happened in there, but yeah, she is definitely going to hit very, very hard. I think Aranea will be at her best in an ice team, and the reason for that is not the synergy with other ice units, as much as just how strong the ice species are. If you can have Fenrir, Mask of Deceit, and something else, she's going to perform very, very well. And so you could pair her with other tanks like Freyevia and etc., and she will do very well. She is a unit with enough damage to kill the entire enemy team by herself if she has bells and somebody to protect her. So a very good tank that's going to keep her from taking too many hits is going to be really good. She is bulky, but she's not enough to, you know, just fight people head on. She's more of a unit that will take the AoE attacks fairly well and keep dealing damage. So that's the way I would use her. Partners like Oberon, other Bruisers are going to be very strong for her naturally. And then if you can use somebody like a Yakak who can haste and heal, you just make sure she takes as many turns as she can before she dies. And whenever she takes a turn, somebody's going down on the enemy team. So I like that concept very well. So should you go for her? I honestly think it's a very tough choice. I'll look at the game mode first, and she is not needed for PvE. She's not a chaining unit, she's not a setup unit, all she does is good damage, and in PvE it's already easy enough to hit the cap that you don't need her. I think she's a great arena unit, because if you can pick your target, she will destroy a lot of enemies. Whenever you fight a team with squishy members, she just mows through them, so I think she can perform very well in there. Guild Battle, that's also true, but there is a lot of magic teams in Guild Battle, and so I would be afraid of fighting somebody who can potentially one-shot her, like a super powered Black Rose Helena, who's going to catch her in an AoE and take her out before she does anything. So you have to be careful, but she could be very, very good. Manual class match, I would definitely rate her highly. She's really good against Missile, she's got guaranteed hits, she can't be charmed, and she does well against Wind. I mean, I think she'll be pretty damn strong in there. And then for auto class matches or blind auto fights, I think she'll also do really well because there aren't that many people that just outright counter her. Even the fire units will be resistant to her attacks, but she's not the type to go down in a single hit, and so she can still do quite a few things against them. So should you go for her? I don't know. The one reason why I don't want to recommend her too much is because she does not bring anything new to the table. There's nothing in Aranea's kit that is inherently new to War Divisions that we've never seen before. All she has is better numbers than a lot of other units. She hits harder, she's got a lot of HP, and that's it. So yes, she's a one-punch machine, she's fairly bulky, she's very mobile, but does she bring anything new that you need to your account? Not necessarily. Also, her best in slot Esper is a specific one that's going to be released and also time limited. She is very selfish, and the Ice Spear, if you don't have one, you can't harness Aranea's best potential. There's a lot of other spears that are good for her, including the one that will be released during the collaboration, but none of them will be as good as the Ice Spear would be. On my end, I'm not sure if I'm going to go for her. I initially wanted to go for Noctis, and then while reviewing her, I realized just how much potential I could take out of her, especially for manual use, which is what I like most, and so it's going to be a tough decision. I'll probably wait until Aranea is released to make that decision. And then for you guys, I wanted to release this video before Noctis was released as well, because I think building all the units during a collaboration is very difficult because of the scaling cost of Mind Spheres. You're forced to buy a lot of shards with Viz, and so if you pull Noctis and then I review her and it makes you want to pull Aranea, hey, at least now I'll have reviewed all 3 units before any of them is released, and it will be in time. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Hopefully you found this interesting. I am very curious to hear your thoughts. She seems like a very powerful unit looking at those numbers and this footage I've seen from JP. What are you going to do knowing all that? So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.